all the European nations are already starting to get worried. In fact, just over last week, the UK's had put their tanks on the tracks and ran it under the underwater tunnel to take it to Europe to see how fast and whether logistically it could do that. And they're ramping up because they're afraid of that.
Tanks in the
tanks, actual tanks.
In the channel?
In the channel, yes, yes.
First time that's happened.
First time that's happened. And so they're alarming news. So that means there's a shift in how, where China's going to be. And China has a very closer relationship with the UK than we are today, possibly, because of economic ties. So Europe may be shifting more towards a China than the US.
Can't take anything for granted anymore. No assumptions anymore. It's all in a cocked hat, so to speak.
And so again, that's to China's advantage.
And the other thing is that, he made this ridiculous statement to say that that he thought that Angela Merkel, who is a great leader, done amazing things in Germany and handled, humanitarian issues as well as could ever be expected for Germany. Including all the, the immigrants, the migrants coming in, and then she was offering them so much solace and support. She's a great leader. And he put him on a parody, Trump did. He said, Angela Merkel, who is a great leader, really, and Putin, who is not nearly a great leader and is suspected of all kinds of bad acts, huge bad crimes. He put him on an equality. I don't understand that, but that alienates Europe, doesn't it?
It does. It certainly does. And so again, we're seeing a lot of signs here where possible geopolitical shifts will occur, and getting back to the economic world, the reality, getting back to it. I think if we're going to look at the U.S., there's one question that we have is, okay, if Trump does certain things, for example, he's talked also about renegotiating NAFTA. That's the treaty with Mexico and Canada. We're going to change it, the equation. Does that mean we also will change the Central America Free Trade Agreement? So we're going to see a very, very delicate situation where these countries, which don't export a lot of things to the U.S., what's going to happen? The Chinese are investing heavily in Latin South America.
They're going to see it as an opportunity, Russell. They're going to move in. They're going to have the kind of relationship we should have had. We worked to have for how many decades. They're going to enjoy that relationship, and we're going to be on the outs. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
We're going to shut in by our own wall.
We're closing our borders. That's what we're doing. And the second thing where we're getting to the heart of the show is that a big thing is, remember that we closed our factories, our manufacturing infrastructure 30 years ago. It's too expensive. We couldn't afford it. Where's the money? We don't have the money to rebuild it. Look at our train system. We don't have the money to rebuild this.
The bridges, the highways, you name it.
Essential to do business within our borders. Essential for manufacturing. Essential to getting local jobs back on track. And we talked about trends recently. For example, there was a major $1 billion investment by a company called Fuyao Glass, which was a major glass manufacturer, and they were buying OGM plants to bring the jobs back to America, to invest in America, where the actual glass for the auto industry is going to be made in the U.S., made by American workers, made for American cars, wages and salary being paid to local American employees. So what does this happen now if there is a mixed signal to China? Okay, a lot of investments from China for Chinese companies go to the U.S. requires the approval of the regulators in China, and that's going to might upset the balance there. And what I'm concerned about is if we take a look at the numbers, in 2016, Chinese companies invested $51 billion into the U.S. In 2015, they invested about $11.7 billion. So there was a 360% increase of this foreign invested money into America. And in 2016, this represented 12% of the foreign direct investment into America by foreign companies. And it's interesting because this is the kind of money that we need to jumpstart the economy. We start closing our borders. We start welcoming China. We start cutting that flow of that investment. We're getting this very xenophobic thing about It reminds me back in the 1800s, with Asia, we're not going to let the Asians come into America. The anti-immigration laws.
Exclusion Act.
And we're getting into that kind of thinking. We're closing our borders when we need that money. So again, where does that leave us, okay? Ray, Jay, excuse me, I'm keeping Ray and Jay, but it just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense.
No, I think what it is happening. It's the reality. He's used it in his campaign. People voted for him. He takes it as a mandate. He is going right down the path of what he said he was going to do. TPP and NAFTA and all foreign trade. He's closing it down. And so, what do we do? We have a president who's going the wrong way. This is 180 wrong. We have Xi Jinping, who is very akamai about this and replacing us on the global stage. He's taking our role and making it the Chinese role. And it's going to be very, successful for him.
And it's going to be easier for him. It's going to be easier for him to do that.
It's a great opportunity for him.
This is an opportunity for China.
Yeah.
And so, these are things that are very troubling that's happening.
Yeah, so what do we do?
Well, let's look to Hawaii. Let's look to what we can do in Hawaii.
What do we do as a country? What do we do as a country?
Good question.
We get another president. Okay, let's go to Hawaii then.
So in Hawaii, we have a very peculiar situation because we don't have big industry. We don't have manufacturing. But there's a glimmer of hope because I think that I'm seeing at least things happening here that people are realizing that, number one, tourism, that's been our big industry. That's a big moneymaker for us, okay? But they're realizing that maybe we've got to take this into our own hands and we've got to look at other industries that we can build here in Hawaii. And I read the papers a couple days ago about a big investment by Iolani School. I believe it's ranked 35th in the country, one of the top schools in the USA. And it's great that we have a school like this in Hawaii. And it's announced plans. It's going to spend $40 million to build international students' dormitory. And they're going to go and bring the best and brightest from Asia. And so this is a start.
That's a great idea.
Super idea.
Kudos to Iolani.
Kudos to Iolani, and kudos to the new headmaster, and who's put Iolani on the track to be globalized. So this is what we talk about a program. We need to think out of the box here. We need to think, what is our core strength in Hawaii? And I think the governor's wife is right on track. She's talked about education. And we need to strengthen our education system here domestically. We need to do what Iolani School is doing. And we need to look at our education industry. And this is the point that I make is that we're never going to have a Harvard here. We're never going to have an MIT. We're not going to have those kind of universities because it takes a long tradition, lots of money. But what we can do is what we're good in is preparatory education, elementary school, junior high school, high school. And what we should focus on is getting this niche cottage education industry to create Hawaii is one of the best places in America. It's safe, it's clean, great education, lots of tradition. Iolani School founded in 1860.
It's diverse. It's
diverse.
It's multiracial, multi-ethnic.
And
so we have a great possibility.
Great possibility.
But it's not just business, though. I hear what you're saying is that it would be beneficial for the state because there would be an inflow of cash money from the parents of these kids who send these kids over here, and they'd be spending money like, tourists, I suppose. It'd be a secondary form of tourism, but there's something else. And what is that? It's like the APCSS down in Waikiki. It's, when you bring people in from foreign governments, foreign military, you're making friends with them for life.
That's right. And
these kids are going to be our friends wherever they come from for life.
You're thinking like a lawyer. You must have been a lawyer in your life. You're thinking where I'm thinking. You develop relationships. And when they like this place, they feel part of the community. They've invested because their children have grown up here. And they want to do something special. They want to invest in the community. And I see a glimmer of hope that maybe we can start to build an intellectual resource base here where they come back, and maybe we can start to do industries we talked about, high tech. We have Mr. Facebook, who says he's going to make his home on Kauai. That brings a lot of news to places like China, Japan, Korea. And you might have some other very influential people from Asia that says, I'll make my home here. Kids will go to school here. And you start to create possibilities. And that's the key. Possibilities, people who have more than an interest because they live in a community. And I think that's very possible, but we need to take those baby steps. We need to support what we're doing, what Iolani School is doing, and hopefully, and Mid-Pacific and Punahou, all great schools, great traditions. We need to help, and we need to help our public school system support that. There's a great program at, I believe, at Waipahu High School, and I was at the Hawaii Tourism Authority conference last year, and the principal there had brought in Mandarin to Waipahu High School. He's thinking global, and we need to gather resources, create the synergy in our public schools as well as our private schools, and start moving this towards the right direction. And it's interesting because, I live in Beijing and I live here, and I'm actually getting calls from business institutions that are looking to place kids in kindergarten here, to bring them in summer, to bring kindergartners to spend a few days learning English, hear English in the environment, play with American kids. And this is where you started. This is where you started.
This will have huge benefits going forward. And so it goes to all these other programs that the United States has had over the past several decades, the social safety net, if you will. They're all at risk now, and really things that we need. We're going to find out later how much we needed them. But the federal government's not going to do a lot of that anymore, and that leaves it to the states. And the federal government is not going to do international relations. Diplomatic policies are going to change. Foreign policy will change under this president. And that leaves it to the states. So I totally agree with you. Hawaii is a multicultural, multi-ethnic, diverse kind of place, and we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We can reach out to both sides. This is something we can do, especially now because of the diminution of connection by Washington with these countries. We can have connection with these countries. This is a great role for us to play, and I hope we see that. I hope our leadership sees that. On the investment side, let me add one other thing, and I'll turn it back to you to close, is that we have to manage foreign investment. We have to want it, we have to go out and get it, we have to make a home for it, we have to treat it fairly. At the same time, we can't let it take advantage of us. And so it's a yin and a yang, this is a Chinese term. It's a yin and a yang thing where we have to, manage it. We have to bring it in and we have to take care of it while it's here. And we must have a leadership to do that. We have not been doing a good job at it. We've been either throwing them out as pariah, or we have been bending over for them as cargo cult. We have to find a sort of a global way of appreciating offshore investment. That's my last statement, but you close now, Russell.
Sure. And as you know, I've been away from Hawaii for 13 years on and off, but I think I'm convinced more so the time is right for us now to do it. It's important because we have direct flights between, for example, Beijing and here. We need to really push